Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Starting Nine. Martino Puccio, Mike Phillips, alongside all of you. We are in the middle of August. The dog days are here. Mike, the Mets are playing spoiler. Uh, we'll get into that in a little bit, but first of all, how are you? As we are in the thick of training camp, the Jets played their first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I did not watch a second of it. I was at Citi Field on Friday night sitting behind home plate. So that was a pretty good spot.
Yeah, humble brag there for a second. I mean, Jets front seven was at least fun to watch. Cade Klubnik did okay, but we'll talk about that on the end of the show. Right now, we're talking about our Mets season, the spoilers. Francisco Lindor, subject to a lot of conversation regarding his future with the team, did have a comment on it, Mike, which was basically saying the plan is to finish out my contract with the New York Mets. We also know his no trade clause is involved in this, and not many teams can afford in terms of just salary alone, and let alone him approving that trade, and then on top of it having the capital to acquire Francisco Lindor. It all seemed like hot air, and newspapers really trying to spearhead this sort of controversial topic. I don't know how you would exactly define it, but it's classic media when the New York Mets are struggling. And
Correct.
Lindor always seems to be the poster boy to take jabs at, as opposed to many other players across this franchise in recent years. But now he's on a heater, and he basically shut down a lot of rumors about him leaving.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts to think about this. I know, and they, as you said, newspaper. I will say one newspaper specifically seems to be driving the Lindor conversation, and that's the one that got the quote because he told Mike Poole in the New York Post, like basically, "Hey, I'm not leaving. I'm staying. I'm gonna fill out my contract here." And it seems to be, a very vocal minority of the fan base seems to be on the Trey Lindor bandwagon. I don't know about you, Martino. I feel like these guys have gotten a lot quieter over the last 2-3 weeks as Lindor started smoking the baseball again.
Oh, so his recovery from a calf strain and a hamate bone were just that, and it's not actually a sign of decline just yet. I mean, listen, he's going to be declining slight. Okay, sorry, keep going.
I said, combined with the fact he's a typical slow starter, it makes sense that now he's got a little rhythm going. He's finally starting to hit.
And he's been electric. Just got the walk-off hit this Saturday against the Washington Nationals. And then obviously or was it Saturday or Friday? I think it was Saturday.
It was Saturday. Friday he homered.
He's hitting over 300. Really strong August. Him and Carson Bench have been the key cogs in this engine. And I'm not going to exclude Bo Bichette from this, who's really turned it around since June. I will say this, though, like the Lindor stuff, trying to force out a future Hall of Fame shortstop is nothing short of Mets fandom stupidity. And I know that there's been a bunch of Lindorks, as they call them. And it's just funny to me how context always mattered for Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, all these other players, but the context never matters for Francisco Lindor, who was the guy that actually dragged them into the playoffs in 2024 to allow Pete Alonso to even have that moment against the Milwaukee Brewers. So to me, that's what always got so tiresome. This is, for my money, it always felt like, Mike, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, that Carlos Beltran was the most underappreciated Met of the 21st century and maybe of all time. Now it's really rapidly become Francisco Lindor. What he's shown you after fully recovering from his injuries this year is that he's still a top-tier shortstop. And I believe, by the way, he has the equal amount of WAR as CJ Abrams this year. So what does that tell you when he basically missed, 3 months? I guess we could round up as.
Yeah, I'd say about 2.5, I think, conservatively.
Okay. So, I mean, the Francisco Lindor stuff, I think you could ride this momentum into 2027 if there's games being played. I don't know how much momentum can do you, but the Mets are playing spoilers. They're still about 10.5, 11 games out of that last wildcard game spot. But a sweep of the Washington Nationals really effectively put a huge dent in their season. And what we already saw them trending towards not being a playoff side, they really put the hammer down on them. So kind of final thoughts. I think this weekend perfectly encapsulates how important Lindor is, especially with no Soto.
Yeah, and to be clear on the, you said, the CJ Abrams thing, I want to be clear, you may have been extrapolating it because CJ Abrams is a 4.4 WAR this year and Lindor is 1.5. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it might have been that, or it could have been a different shortstop. So whatever the stat was. But yes, good
Yes.
correction.
Yeah. So in terms of the second half stat line for Lindor here, just to be aware, as a baseball reference, like since the All-Star break in 28 games, it's 125 at bat. As I play appearances, that's not a small sample size. 287 batting average, 7 homers, 20 RBIs, a 921 OPS. That looks a lot more like the guy we're used to than what we saw in the first half when he's going through the hand injury and then he's got the calf injury. He's working his way back. Like, it's almost like, if guys don't play baseball and they're coming off injuries, they don't play well. So, like, that's something you should think about here. And I do also want to give a shout out to Mets admin on social media for constantly putting up videos of Soto and Lindor dapping each other up over the weekend. That was great.
Finally, it's good PR moves. It's just the right way to go about things. And speaking about players and injuries, Jorge Polanco is basically being shut down for the year, Mike.
He's not being based on. We're talking about whether they should or not.
Oh, whether they should. All right. Well, whatever. Made the graphic last second.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, we saw the graphic. I think you sent to one of our friends, or maybe our friend sent it. Him and Vientos combined around -2.5 WAR. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been wrong quite a bit in these first 2 segments. I don't see the point in this for this season. So what we were just talking about before we went live here, you cannot really just keep trotting this guy out there. If there is some path to recovery, to start your offseason now to try and heal, now's the time to do it. You're going to have 1 year left on his deal. You're not going to be able to offload this contract, Mike, and especially with the CBA looming. I think the best course of action, to what your point was, try and get him healthy. Try and do all these different types of things, right? So say the middle of August, we get to September, October, November, December, January, and then you come back into spring training in February. That's quite a bit of time, and that's assuming the season will start on time. It's quite a bit of time for recovery for Jorge Polanco to maybe just have it be manageable for next season, where he could be relatively productive as a designated hitter. What do you think the best course of action is? I think everyone sees that you just have to shut him down, and it's not necessarily his fault. I really do feel bad for him.
I do too, and this is something I've not gotten to the open of the game lately. I've been kind of popping in. I happened to be there on Sunday, and they were talking about at the open. Keith Hernandez and Gary were talking about, like, hey, when you have the Achilles thing, like Polanco has, that's very hard to drive and get power off that back leg, get some power, like get some contact. He did have a couple of big hits he had a smoked a single on Saturday night. Sunday, he drove in a run. My sense is I think they're going to try and let him, get some at bats in here and see how he feels. I think the question with him is, like, if we get to like September and there are rumblings that Mr. Soto wants to come back here, I think at that point, if you're going to say, okay, we're going to use the DH spot for Soto at some point and like get him at bats, so we don't want to put him in the field and risk him earning himself more. That's, I think, you have the conversation about, okay, is it time to shut down Jorge Polanco at that point? I think that's when you're really looking at the timing for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Soto does return, and we have already seen Luis Robert be experimented in left field, Mike, it could just be a Soto taking over the DH position, which would effectively just take Mark Vientos out of any potential playing time. I'm hoping and praying to God.
And Polanco at that point as well.
Well, of course, Polanco. I think that's pretty much inferred by that, but I'm trying to talk about the boogeyman in the distance.
Oh, yeah, sure. Speaking of the boogeyman, the Mets did call up a guy today, Christopher Morel, who is the same type of player, who is the righty power bat who can play first base, and Vientos a few weeks out. So maybe, Christopher Morel might take the Vientos job before Vientos has a chance to.
I don't think Vientos is going to get an opportunity to win back his job. I think, and maybe it's a bit biased, that his Mets career is over. I kind of have a hard time seeing that. And for the Mets, why would you ever risk and again, this is the Mets, but why would you risk Juan Soto going to play the outfield, which will kind of just go to there and talk about the projection for a September return. He definitely wants to return. There's no doubt in my mind, regardless of what people have in terms of narratives about this guy, he loves playing baseball and he wants to come back. He is an ultimate competitor. And I think DH makes the most sense. If you're considering Lou Bob for next year, as we kind of mentioned, Mike, got to see what he could do in left field, because I would assume AJ Ewing is a more valuable center fielder. I would have to look at all the metrics and all that kind of stuff. Eye test says yes. You could have Soto be that DH, test Robert out in left field, see if he gets more comfortable there. then you're weighing your options really for 2027, which is basically what these last 6 weeks or so are going to be about, Mike. What will the 2027 New York Mets look like? Who's going to get an opportunity to audition for that team? And it's also seeing the success of Kodai Senga. Him and Sean Manaea might be playing themselves back into that roster. Manaea definitely has, and it seems like Senga on this trajectory will. Soto in September to play spoiler. And again, the New York Mets will miss wild card 3 by 4 games. I maintain this. And this would align with that. What is the earliest you want to see Soto return? When do you think he will return? Because it's already been a couple of weeks now, but this calf strain was obviously worse than the initial one from the start of the year.
Yeah, I would say, I think probably, I would say around Labor Day, you're looking at Soto coming back, being my guess. I think, they're going to obviously, test him out, have him go on rehab. I think they may tell him, Juan, if you're coming back this year, you're not playing the outfield. You're going to hit only. And, if you get your calf, I think you're going to shut down again, because I think there is value here. We mentioned the possibility of a looming lockout, which could delay the start of the season. If you're Juan Soto, and I think you're aware of this, you don't want your last at bat of the season to be in July. You would rather get some at bats against live pitching in September if you're not going to the playoffs. Plus, if you've seen some of the post-game videos, I mentioned social admins and posting here, Juan Soto seems to be enjoying the vibe this group has. And I feel like he wants to be a part of it. So I think that will be a thing here. And it's one of those things that I mentioned this in the group chat with the Mets, with the teams who are out of it completely. We're in now what I call the whose lines anyway portion of the season, where everything is made up and the points don't matter. The Mets basically, these games don't matter for the long run here in terms of the standings. The runs and all that stuff doesn't make sense here. You're just watching, okay, stuff like, is Juan Soto come back and hit? Can Jorge Polanco give you something? Can, Jared Young prove he's a part of the first base mix next year? That's something you're watching. Can Kodai Senga close? That'd be a fun development here. And the Mets that could be a massive development for the Mets if Kodai Senga is a closer candidate for next year. These are all things you're watching for here.
And we could talk about Senga for a little bit too, because we kind of removed it for that.
Yeah.
There's a funny narrative in baseball that I always kind of laugh at. And I know I've said this to you guys, and I've said, okay, well, the thing for me with Senga being a closer is that you have to have that mental edge, and he seems like he's a little shaky. And it's not to say that the Mets aren't playing meaningful games, because you can argue they're not. From the Mets' perspective, however, the opposing team is trying to win, which is always just or whatever players are racking up garbage time averages. And there's no such thing in baseball as that, and especially in the regular season with this new wild card format. How much are you taking into account of Kodai being able to do this? He's also voiced his displeasure of being a relief pitcher as well. Do you think that carries weight going into next year? But
no,
would he can convince himself that this is something that he should really consider transitioning to, because he's 3 for 3 so far, and the Mets are oddly getting good closer percentages now because of the Devin Williams splits with him closing and not closing. He was 16 of 19 before his injury. Got shut down for a little bit, by the way, for arm fatigue.
It's shoulder strain for Devin Williams.
So
I think,
go ahead.
Yeah, and then obviously he wants to come back, but considering where they are in the season, they have him for 2 more years. They'll be very cautious with him. So I think they will say, "Hey, Devin, you can come back next year if you need to. Don't throw unless your arm feels good." So I think this is the spot to let Kodai Senga go. And I think the thing with Kodai Senga, you talk about the mental stuff here. I think he's a guy I feel who overthinks things too much. Where he has 5-6 pitches and he wants to go. And we've seen how brilliant he can be one time through, and then kind of overthinks it and goes through it. Whereas this role might be perfect for him because, he has the elite fastball. He has the fork ball as the good secondary pitch. And say, hey, just go max yourself out. Just get through the 3 batters and get through it here. And I will tell you, Citi Field was popping on Friday when he came out with his new closer entrance.
I think he's looked really good. And I'm a Kodai Senga hater. And that's very well on this podcast. He's looked brilliant. It's just about players buying in. And if he's in a better mental state where, to your point is, he's not overthinking things, more power to you. It helps the Mets juggle their future in the relief positions as well. And we've also seen the relievers, Mike, been pretty damn good since the trade deadline. Jeffrey Yan and all, who obviously got to do his strikeout celebration at Citi Field for the first time, was electric to end the inning.
Daniel Duarte is an ERA or 2.
David, I gotta say, and again, I've literally said this all year long, and I know you've backed me up on this. David Stearns he's saved his ass because of what he's been doing with player development.
Yeah.
The major league contracts and some bad luck, some stupidity, and some just straight up head scratching. And gotta be honest with you, the bullpen has been consistent. And the only times their bullpens have been bad in the David Stearns era, Mike, is when the rotation and starters can't go deeper into games where we're burning them out. And I've also think Andy Green, that's the other thing too. I think Andy Green's done a much better job of keeping this group loose than what Mendy had done. And it's not even me disliking Mendy as a person. I thought he was like a fine player manager, and I think the guys liked him. There was just a difference of accountability and just keeping guys honest. And that's something that I didn't really see with Carlos Mendoza. Andy Green has kind of done that. I'm not advocating for him to be the manager full time like some people have. But that vibe is different. Like you mentioned that Soto wants to be a part of. So final comments there on just like the Mets post trade deadline, their ultimate spoilers so far.
Yeah, I believe the record, I think they're even 500. Andy Green, I think 22-22 since he took over, which is, far better than they had. More is like not even an indictment on Mendy. I think sort of like he was like the last remnant of the black cloud that was that year of like them being disastrous as an organization. And like now that he's gone and like a lot of the key guys in that mix are gone, say, okay, like now we can, have some fun. We're not the weight of, oh, this is the collapse group. Like, can we do this? And now they're playing looser, freer. And I think like in terms of, the bullpen angle you mentioned, we were saying, oh, they trade their entire bullpen away. They have to replace like 6 guys in the offseason. With what they have, some of the guys working here, and the fact they have a couple guys come off injury next year, maybe only need to get 2 guys in the winter, and that would be a huge win for the Mets if that's the case.
Which would, to your point, it would be. And you could always find names on the relief market.
Yeah.
Starting pitching wise, a little bit different. We're seeing Jonathan Santucci come up to AAA. Winiger has gotten some run. We'll see about Jonah Tong. Is Jonah Tong one of those internal promotions as well, Mike? Because a lot of people are theorizing that he is going to be a relief pitcher, if not a starting pitcher. And I don't know, truthfully, after what I've seen this season, I don't see a trade because I feel like that stock has fallen significantly relative to last year, where he was like one of the top pitching prospects in all of minor league baseball. You've seen ups and downs, lots of walks. It's a little exciting to see moving forward. I think you make a great point about Mendoza being gone. Everybody puts the stuff behind them. The New York Mets are 9-3, I believe, since the trade deadline. So
correct.
Really good start to being spoilers. The New York Yankees have partially been sold to a private equity firm for $2.6 billion. I mean, listen, I'll let you get into the entire report, but when you allow PE to come in to your business, your franchise, we all know what it's like. We all know what they do. Cause for concern long-term or short-term for Yankees fans. It's very interesting. To me, this signals a future sale of the Steinbrenner family. We're seeing the buses obviously sell the Los Angeles Lakers. These historical families that have run some of the most insane and popular franchises in American sports. You're going to start to see them slowly disappear due to the valuation of these clubs. Too much money for their families to turn down, arguably. Woody Johnson, please. You're seeing the Steinbrenners really have to refinance things. And this isn't any different from how, not it is different, but it's not surprising for how the Steinbrenners have run things for quite some time, because they had their board, and Hal has always mentioned how he has to answer to other people, and there's investors when they're talking about these big money signings in the off seasons. What does this do for the New York Yankees? Is this sort of like worrisome for you if you're a Yankees fan, Mike?
I wouldn't say worrisome. I would just look at here in terms of the percentage here. Like Yankees got a $10 billion valuation in this one. So they sold about like 20%, like roughly, to this private equity firm. They're on the board. They don't have, power over decisions. That's still with the Steinbrenner family and the board. So I think this is more a case of like, I think it's more of a wide view baseball scale in terms of like the labor negotiations coming up here, where like, if you're sitting here telling me, okay, the New York Yankees are valued at $10 billion by this firm, and you got Hal Steinbrenner basically saying, like, we need a salary cap. Basically, I think Hal is more in the sense of like, this is not like a Steve Cohen where he runs like his hedge funds and has all these resources coming out of the way. the Yankees are the only Steinbrenner business. And the Yankees are
Yes.
they do make a lot of money, but they also have a lot of expenses in terms, I've mentioned many times, I got to pay tax in the Bronx. I got to repay the stadium bonds. Like, this is like free capital for them to have access to get them more revenue stream. I think it's something that's, more important for the labor negotiations, because you have, these other players associations look at, you're telling me that baseball is poor, yet, we have the Padres selling for $5 billion. The Yankees are valued at $10 billion. The Braves seem to be doing quite well if you look at their books. Like, I don't know why you're saying we need to rip up the entire sports system here, because it seems like you guys are doing quite well over there.
Yeah, and very similar to the Buss family, Mike. That was pretty much their main business as well for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
We've seen this across sports, though. Now, at this point, you've seen a lot of NFL teams where they get minority investors coming in. Either some people are selling stakes or investing. I think the Eagles were one of them where their valuation jumped significantly, I think to like $8 billion at the time. The Jets are another one of those ball clubs where you're seeing just that Steve Cohen deal from years ago is looking like a steal now for most of them. And this is across sports too. European football, soccer, is similar to this. The valuations are not that high because the TV deals don't even compare to American sports. I just wonder in terms of control and then who ends up taking over the Yankees, because heading into the 2030s, Mike, I'm not fully convinced the Steinbrenners will be running day-to-day operations for them. So
yeah,
I think
as far as I'm aware, there is no path for them to take ownership by themselves, the private equity group. I don't think they are interested in that right now.
But it's not necessarily the PE group for me. It's just what this is signaling towards, because they're going to have to pay back this money.
They just bought a stake in the Yankees. They didn't
it's a capital, but from what I was seeing, it's a capital injection. It's not just the purchase with the team. If they're injecting capital, they're giving money to the Yankees and the Steinbrenners, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this right now in terms of what this deal does. The Yankees received $2.6 billion from the Apollo Group. That's the private equity firm here. It confirms basically that the money will be used to support the growth of the franchise and refinance existing debt. The value of the franchise is over $10 billion. They retain control. They get a seat on the board, the Apollo Group. Yeah. So right now they are on the board. And I do think in terms of what this is, I think it could be a situation where Apollo, I think right now is not interested in owning the Yankees. He wants to be part of it and, get their kickbacks from the revenue streams that they generate by buying in.
But that's the start. That's the tip of the iceberg. I'm not saying they fully take over, but that's when things like guys with Hal Steinbrenner.
There were rumors also. I think go back to the Mets when I remember back in the early 2010s when the Wilpons brought on minority investors. I remember Einhorn was one of them, and there was a whole thing about you're gonna they were talking about when they were deep trouble with the Madoffs, and this is when they got the loan from the league. It's okay, I think I have to sell the team. And I remember I was intern at the time at WABC at the TV station. I think the sports anchor Rob Powers made this great point to me off the air. He's like, hey, if you're going to sell a team, why not? You might go to the guys already there. Say, hey, you want to just up your percentage? So that could be something
exactly.
You look at that one. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which was always, but then again, guys externally come and offer a ton of money. Happened with Steve Pagulika and the Boston Celtics. Minority owner there. Didn't end up going with him, but they were like, this would have been the perfect guy for it on day-to-days. New York Yankees have injury updates. Cody Bellinger. Who's the other player? The name is escaping me, Mike. Excuse me. Are expected to return.
Rodon might be back tomorrow.
Okay. I know Cody Bellinger is reported to come back first week of September. Is what the
I can catch you up a little bit if you want on the injuries.
Sure,
here.
Go for it.
Yeah. So right now there's 5 updates basically. Bellinger is, going on a rehab sign at the end of the week, which is he's ahead of schedule. He's running full speed right now. So could be back early next week. Should be a huge win for the Yankee offense. And on to see Elliot Ramos not run out ground balls and be in the lineup every day against that would be a help there. Rodon, he could be back tomorrow. Worst case, getting one more rehab, so he'll be back out for the weekend. Clark Schmidt is throwing again. So it looks like I feel they're going to try and turn him into a bullpen guy. Giancarlo is running the bases. We saw the video of him looking like the robot running the bases, but he is running, so may not be that far away, I believe. Aaron Boone said the order of the hitters returning is going to be Bellinger first, then Stanton, and then Judge, because Judge played catch over the weekends. And they're guesstimating a month out for Judd. So like, I will say to all the Yankee fans who are freaking out right now, like I believe Jim Bowman says as well, this is not the team you'll be carrying into October. You're carrying this team into October, you're getting murdered. You have to look, I think, just hang in there, be patient, check back in a month, see how you guys look over the last 2 weeks and see when you have all your guys back. And I think that's your real sign of like what your playoffs run will look like.
Yeah, the Yankees are in such a bizarre season. I wouldn't even be shocked at this rate, the way things have gone for them, that it's just a 3-game series loss in the wild card.
It could, because they're playing the Red Sox, and that pretty much guaranteed. And, the Red Sox are one of the few teams who go pitch for pitch with the Yankees.
And I feel like mentally they have this edge over the Yankees, where the Yankees are this team that is supposed to be, winning this pennant. The Yankees are supposed to be the favorite here. We know how the Boston Red Sox have operated. The fact that they're even in this conversation to make the playoffs, regardless of how shitty the American League is, they've had one of the greatest in-season turnarounds of all time. And the Yankees don't want to face a team like that, and especially when it's that rival. I think they're gonna get worried. Like, I think they need to do anything they can to avoid the Boston Red Sox if possible. Because
the only way to do that is to win the division. I don't think they're doing that.
It's completely set in stone. Yeah, well,
they're 5.5 back at Tampa right now. The Red Sox are 3 behind them. And then you're looking at what you're not going to drop below 500 to go into wild card 3 territory. So like, you're kind of like locked in that spot. It's the only question I think right now is who hosts the series.
Boston's been 3-7 in their last 10. So they've been struggling a little bit. They
were due to cool off after that 32-5 heater.
Yeah, regression to the mean for sure. I think that's a significant point to make, is that the Yankees can't avoid this path at this point. And again, Boston played them real tight in that 3-game series. And that was a much weaker lineup for Boston last year, as we had mentioned. Roman Anthony was not healthy. We're presuming Anthony comes back. I don't know what kind of player he'll be. One of my biggest busts of pick this year. He wasn't even a pick. I just said top 10 MVP candidate. Not close. But at least I didn't back Cal Raleigh, just his team. So it's some positive news for the Yankees, but they're still a little further away than people want to admit. That's still a couple weeks before these guys come out and turn. Could shift in Boston's direction, to your point about hosting that wild card series. So
I'm trying.
Final points on these injury updates.
It's really in terms of the Red Sox. I'm trying to look it up right now. The season series is obviously they swept 3 in Fenway in April. They split 2 in the Bronx in June because they had a rain out in the middle that got thrown into the next series they play. They got swept lost 4 in a row to Boston in Boston. So that makes it 4 and 5 so far. I guess the Yankees, I can't count. I'm trying to see it. Yeah, they're 4 and 5 so far, and they have a big 4-game series in the Bronx next weekend. That's going to be Friday night, a split doubleheader Saturday, and on Sunday. So the Yankees to win 3 or 4 out series, and sure they have the tiebreaker over the Red Sox to make sure that they end up hosting that series if it gets to that point.
That's their bet. The Yankees always do this. There's just so much talent on pitch. I don't know. Vibes are off. I think there needs to be a voice of change that I've stated for quite some time. And I think that starts with their legendary decision maker, but that's just me. Speaking of more decisions to make, Jazz Chisholm, Mike, always a point of topic for you when we talk about the Yankees here. I'm not stunned that he wasn't moved at the deadline. I thought it should have been a no-brainer for the Yankees to do that. I would have slotted Jose Caballero in at second and just get rid of Jazz. I don't think Jazz is a bad player. I think what Jazz has done as a Yankee has been overall positive. But in terms of a fit there, I don't see it. And we all knew long-term, especially after what we saw this season, this wasn't going to work out with him. And it just keeps on trending in that direction. Jazz Chisholm is highly unlikely to be back with the New York Yankees in 2027, right?
You remember when he said in the spring he's going to go 50-50 this year?
Yes.
We are a long way from that.
Give us the numbers.
Yeah, on the season, 216 average, 17 home runs, 32 steals. So he's close. So he could get the steals if he keeps running, but home runs is not happening here. he's been brutal, I think, since the All-Star break in August, particularly 6 for 41 on August, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 16 strikeouts. That's not good.
No, he's probably due for like some hot stretch like he usually does. I think New York is a place that eats you alive at certain points when things don't go your way. And Jazz is great for baseball. I do enjoy him. I don't think New York is his flow. I think he'll be a much better player. I think Miami was perfect for him, to be honest with you. Very curious to see where he moves forward. But this is sort of my issue with Brian Cashman, to go back to him. Why wasn't Jazz moved? Could you not get anybody that wanted to pay? And I know you could say stock low, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't see how keeping Jazz was in their best interest when he very obviously is not going to be coming back with the Yankees. And I don't think they're doing a Trent Grisham situation where they're offering him a QO this offseason.
And Jazz would take if he gets offered at this point because
exactly. That's why I don't think they'll do it, because they saw what happened with Grisham and that backfired significantly. And there's reasons behind that, but Cashman ain't doing that again.
No, and I think it's Jazz. I think like we saw on Sunday, like he got benched for Caballero at second base, which is not what you want if you're like a guy like Jazz. And like I think you look at it, some of these guys coming back, whether it's, when you get the big 3 back, when you have Luis Garcia here, you have Ramos here, like Jazz's playing time might start to drop a little bit if he doesn't get himself on track over the next few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think he plays in that wild card series. I don't think he starts. I think
if Caballero is hot, Caballero will play there.
Even if he's not hot, what's the big difference between the bats at the moment, right? Like I know this idea of like Jazz has better hit tools overall. He's a better hitter. But are you sacrificing similar hitting statistics for a huge difference in defense? I don't think you do that. I think the Yankees have to shore up their central. If you could have Bellinger in center, if that's presumably the move, and Lombard at short, who's playing great defensively.
Bellinger, I think you're looking at this the way I think you look at the outfield. Probably gonna be. I think they will still go Grisham in center because of his defensive ability. Bellinger left, Judge right if he can play, and then you have infield Lombard's gonna get short. Rice or Garcia will play first, and then I think you'll get Stanton in there.
But I'm speaking on strictly the central part of the midfield, like up the middle for the Yankees. Like
I think the debate you're looking at there is going to be like, is Ryan McMahon hitting enough to make his defense playable? Because if he's not, then I can see them putting Caballero at third and going with Jazz at second.
But my whole thing is like Jazz isn't, as you mentioned, is not offensively doing that. Maybe he turns it around. He has plenty of time, but like why would I do that at that point? If they're all hitting similarly, why am I sitting McMahon or Caballero? I'm sitting Jazz Chisholm.
I think that's the point I think I'm trying to make, is that like Jazz has to significantly out hit like Ryan McMahon to be in the playoff lineup. Because McMahon's a much better defender.
If he can't out hit a terrible hitter, then buddy, like go retire at that point. KBO's calling. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And Ryan McMahon's hitting well this month. He's hitting 270 in August with a homer, 5 RBIs, at 754 OPS. Jazz's OPS of the month is 459.
That's an incredible, like probably a career month for Ryan McMahon too, knowing what kind of player he is. Not having a career month or year is Paul Skenes.
Yeah.
Decline, not decline. The media's best friend, Kurt Schilling, was saying that he noticed the mechanics had changed on Paul Skenes in spring around the World Baseball Classic, and that was going to affect him. Other people have theorized that this is part of why Skenes is no longer Skenes that everybody knew and loved the first couple of seasons. Still a good pitcher, but not the ace in the top of the heap that we had grown accustomed to. I think this is fixable. If he's not hurt, he'll be fine. But to mess with somebody's mechanics, I don't know what it was. If this is true, it's got to be one of the biggest morons I've ever seen in my life. Changing up Paul Skenes' mechanics off of the record years that he had is like telling Steph Curry to change your shooting for him. That's the start of his career. I don't understand what is going on, truthfully, with Skenes. But regardless of what you think about ERA, if it's hovering around 4, Mike, stunning.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people have noticed with him is that his velo is down significantly over the course of the year. Like, it's dropped like 2 miles an hour from the start of the season to now. The Pirates are skipping start on Sunday, pushing him back 3 days to say that extra rest will help here. But like, when you're a pitcher and the velo is going down, like that's you start worrying here. Is something wrong physically? He claims he's fine. He's claiming that the velo dialback's intentional, which I don't buy that. I think there is something going on that, he's either not telling them or they're, covering up for competitive purposes, which is obviously their prerogative to do that. But like, this is not the same Paul Skenes that we banked on here. And like the rest of that team isn't playing pretty well. Like he is really like, I believe they're like under 500 at starts, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean it's bad. And worst part is now trade value. And again, I know that he's definitely not going to get traded anytime soon, but just the overall idea that your gem and one of your best players of this century is now becoming a shell of himself. And I just wonder if the offers come on in for Skenes that are trying to get him away from Pittsburgh and try to revive his career. And would he possibly try and I don't think this is his personality, by the way. Do you think it would be wise for him to try and force a move out of Pittsburgh this offseason because of how this has gone for him?
I think
it's something with the organization, Mike. I got to be honest with you. I don't think this is a Skenes thing. I know it's him and he could downplay stuff. I think it's that organization.
They're 9-16 as starts this year. I did look it up while you were talking, which is when you're in the wild card hunt and your ace, you're 9-16 games started by your ace. That's a problem. Like that's really,
and they're not that far out of the contention of it.
No, it's not like, last year where like he was, not getting run support. Like they've hit more this year. Like they're 6.5 out. You flip that record to 16-9 instead of 9-16. They're in the playoffs. Like right now, that's a big problem here. And like, I think you're more concerned about the long-term health for Paul Skenes, where like you're going to see, I think they lifted after 65 pitches in his last start on Tuesday because the velo drop. I think if he comes out and his velo is still down, I would not be shocked if you're going to see him go on the IL with like arm fatigue or some generic term, so they can
shut him down for the year. And do you
try and give him some rest, see if they can get him back on track?
Does this give more hate towards the World Baseball Classic? Final point on this.
Well, ask Cal Raleigh about how the World Baseball Classic did for him this year and a few other guys. So like, I just think again, like this tournament where it is not ideal, and like we see it with Skenes, we saw it with Scuba a little bit, where like he probably would have the scope cleaned up if he wasn't pitching in this thing, because he said he had the elbow stuff in the offseason and wanted to pitch in it. Cal Raleigh goes out there, barely plays, and now he's had a god awful year. This thing should not be in March. Can stand by this forever here. This thing is a very bad thing for the sport. And it's also part of me, the little Met bias in me as well, is that like the last 2 years, the World Baseball Classic has happened. The Mets have had miserable years. And I think that is a big part of that.
2006, though. Terrible ending.
Well, I'm talking about 23, 26. They were miserable.
I know, but I'm saying we've had a good year. But we're also the Mets, so I can't really go off with too much. Pete Alonso hitting leadoff. I believe he hit a home run yesterday, Mike. He's starting to heat up this month for sure in terms of power. Approaching, I think that was number 27 or 28 for him. Surely going to be around that 35 home run mark. Maybe he might hit 40 for the first time in a couple of years. Lost year for the Baltimore Orioles, who are still pseudo contenders.
If they were the National League, be a lost year. They are tied for wild card 3 entering today. That's how bad the AL is.
That is mind blowing, and they're a shit team. Pete's also their signs. The signs of the decline are there, and for me, Pete's had a good offensive year, but you're paying for great, and Pete hasn't been great, and that's my thing. Hitting him leadoff feels desperate. I would never hit this guy leadoff. I don't get it. Maybe there's some metrics pointing towards that. What do you make of this? He's been their best player this season. I would say Gunner's been incredibly disappointing, arguably the most disappointing, especially the past 2 years.
Yeah, Gunner's 220 to 702 OPS. That's a very average player.
Buying the dip
on Gunner. I think this is a Gunner. I think Gunner's like, once he gets out of Baltimore, he's gonna find himself again. That's my Gunner hunch.
I think he's gonna be a stud third baseman somewhere.
Yeah, that's possible. In terms of Pete, I think they're trying to go for the Kyle Schwarber thing, where like you put your slugger who has an eye at the plate on base. I think that's sort of the theory there, but like I don't know if I buy that. I don't think he is like that prodigious, like a OBP guy like Schwarber is. Like Schwarber's like usually flirt with 400 on base. He's at 360, which is solid, but not the ideal version here. Pete's been good for Baltimore this year. He's going to probably hit about 35, 100, maybe 35, 105 ish. But there are long-term signs that worrisome, like in terms of, the bat speed's down a bit. You don't usually get that back at this age. Like, you want a guy like you're Baltimore, you're trying to win in years 1, 2, and 3 of this contract. Because 4 and 5 are not going to look good. And if you don't get in the playoffs year 1 when he's having probably one of his better years there, that's not good.
I think that there's been the production that's been good for Pete, but there's also, like you mentioned, big signs of decline. Not big signs, glaring signs of decline.
There are warning signs.
I think that's a huge warning sign with the bat speed. I'd be very worried. And also, resting doesn't bring it back. Like once it's gone, it's gone. It's like your actual running speed. You can maybe drop some weight to move quicker to the ball. That's possible with Pete. But Pete's not somebody who could just cut down size as well.
No, and like Pete's having a good WAR year because he's played better defensively in Baltimore than he did in New York, which is something that's interesting of note, considering the Mets, one of the biggest reasons they didn't want him to play first is his defense. So see how long that sticks. But I think for sure, like, could they get in the playoffs knowing how mediocre the American League is? Absolutely. But like, they're not going far. They didn't believe themselves enough. They sold the deadline.
I think what my point was not too long ago, to sell at a point when the American League sucks for a guy like Adley Rutschman, if you keep on for another year, you risk the value being even worse. I know it's not favorable because it's in division, but they got a great return. And to kind of retool where they are as a franchise, you have good bats, add to the pitching, add to your weaknesses. And I think that trade did that. And to your point, I know that you've made Samuel Basayo maybe potentially catching a little bit more, or you could just go and maybe find another catcher elsewhere.
They gave him 8 years. He's going to be the catcher.
I think but his bat's really good, so I don't know if they might shift him if there's potential injuries down the road. But it's fair. They have to fix that because Taylor Ward dumping already after the Grayson Rodriguez trade, which was fine to get rid of Rodriguez because he obviously hurt and not doing well. But when Shane Baz was like their number one pitching guy, you had to go and make a move. Sacrificing Rutschman, it didn't seem like an extension was going to get done. Baltimore's operating very odd when it comes to the financials, Mike. In my opinion.
The one that like made sense then was like we heard this linked for them for the all season. Like, I don't know why they were not in on Framber Valdez because like he's a guy who would have fit that team pretty well in terms of like what you need a guy at the top who gives you innings and is proven to be a winner. Like, obviously, like he's been okay in Detroit. I think he would fare better in Baltimore.
Possibly. I think ever since that catcher incident, he was cooked mentally. I don't know. It's just not the same guy. But a fair point for sure. I mean, just the they didn't even try, in my opinion, for the pitching market. You find it like guys overpriced or not. I don't know. It's just they're fascinating. Somehow in playoff contention. I don't get it. No one gets it.
I also pitch that we do like every week. We do a weekly AL wildcard 3 update just so we talk how stupid this is.
AL wildcard update is like when it was either the NFC South did it pretty often, but I know the Seahawks when they beat the Saints. Seahawks had a losing record, but also won the division and hosted that game with the famous Marshawn Lynch power run in Seattle. His most iconic run of his career. It's just funny when you see that, and the American League is so bad that we could have teams contend with losing records.
I'll give you the quick update here as we'll do this every week. I think until the rest of the regular season is how bad this third wild card is in the American League. Right now, he's being held by Baltimore at 61 and 63. They are the sole third wild card right now. Half game back, Texas 61 and 64. 1 full game back, Toronto at 61 and 65. Detroit, after selling off Skubal and Casey Mize at 60 and 64. 1.5 back, the Twins and Guardians at 60 and 65. 2.5 back, the Mariners 59 and 66. 700, 500. They're 2.5 games out of a playoff spot.
I just it's with the Mets season the way it's been gone. I'm infuriated. I hate baseball this year, and I hate the American League. I really do.
And the winner of that third slow seat bumper car chase of the wild card against the Astros, who are game over 500 in the
who are also very, very beatable. They're incredibly beatable. I think Houston could really play themselves into a huge
And we
not a huge run here. Does anybody want to face a house money Houston Astros team?
And it's ironic because you look at the AL, and remember, the MLB does this as bracket style because of how condensed the playoffs, they don't reseed. So
right,
one side of the AL bracket is the AL East Invitational with the Red Sox, Rays, and Yankees. And then the other side is these White Sox, Astros, like AL wildcard 3 situation. So like you're gonna have like the heavy gunfight on one side, the pillow fight on the other.
There's gonna be a team that potential if I think, listen, if Boston or the Yankees don't make it to that championship series,
well, they run into Tampa. You guys remember that too.
Well, in the divisional series. My point being, if Tampa wins that, Tampa, can you imagine a Tampa Houston or a Tampa Chicago White Sox championship series? What does that do for negotiations, by the way, if we have that in there? Oh, and by the way, I have a pick for my NL pick. I have a live late season NL pennant pick, which I'll talk about next segment. But it's very possible we get a weak representative for the American League. It's more than
I will say is whichever of those 3 gets out of their gauntlet, that's who's going to the World Series out of the American League, in my opinion. It's like that right. Whichever Rays, Yankee, Red Sox team gets out of that massacre over there is going to win the pennant.
I think you have a great point because no matter any of those 3 teams, they all have the best. Those are arguably the 3 best pitching rotations in the American League if you don't count the Mariners. Like that's like really tough to beat that side in a 7-game series, and I'm talking about all 3 of them. So, good point there. Not great for baseball. The LA Dodgers are playing badly, and I've watched them. Edwin Diaz has looked horrible. Either Edwin Diaz is one of the best relief closing pitchers that you'll ever see in your life, or he's just a guy who's pretty bad. And the Dodgers have been struggling for quite some time. We know that they're aging, and I've mentioned this with their pitching health and just their overall hitters being all over the age of 30. There is possible signs of regression, and winning 3 straight World Series is a really, really, really difficult thing to do. I know Blake Snell is either close to returning or did just return.
He's back, and Glasnow's close.
That's the thing with the Dodgers. They still have plenty of talent pitching-wise. They just haven't been fully healthy, which is always like if you draw out question marks for every team in Major League Baseball and their franchises, you would say that we've seen the decline of Mookie Betts. Freddie Freeman, did you anticipate Freddie Freeman still being much better than Mookie Betts in the year 2026? I don't know. It depends on how you think of things. I'm not saying that this is the end of the Dodgers, but Mike, is this the beginning of the end of the LA Dodgers current crop?
They are very vulnerable. I will say that. Like, they have a lot of issues here. And you didn't mention Kyle Tucker. We can't play home games apparently now because
well, yeah, go ahead on the Kyle Tucker ripping. Go for it.
It's all you. Like, this is a guy who got $60 million a year and actively chose to go to LA because he didn't want the smoke of playing in New York or Toronto, where he would be much more focused on is like the guy compared to LA, where he can blend in with everybody. He's hitting like about 190 at home. Dave Roberts benched him on Saturday because he said he's pressing at home. And then he goes and drops a fly ball on Sunday. He's back in the lineup against the Brewers. And a series Brewers, I believe, end up winning, getting the home field edge over the Dodgers in the postseason. It comes down to that. So that's not great. Diaz has lost command of the slider again, which is not great. And I'll also throw out here, why the hell are they letting Shohei Ohtani get ready to pitch again? You're not going to need him because you have, theoretically, if like Glasnow is back, you have right now Yamamoto, Skubal, who has not been great as he got there. I figure he'll figure things out in couple of weeks.
Maybe.
Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow. Why are we doing this with Shohei Ohtani? Like,
he's using Roki Sasaki as well, who pitched okay against the Brewers.
They have Roki Sasaki. They have Emmett Sheehan. They have Eric Lauer, who they got his rotation depth to like be a 6-man guy.
Robleski might be getting Tommy John though.
He went on the IL because he has forearm issues. So like he was going to the bullpen anyway in the long run. But like, why are we wasting our breath on this vanity project for the Dodgers? Like, Shohei Ohtani feels the only reason he's trying to get back on the mound is he's worried to lose the MVP to Pete Crow Armstrong. There is no reason for him to be getting on the mound in this configuration because his bat's far important to them than him pitching.
I don't know how many times I have to say it about the Shohei and the pitching thing. I think it's one of the it's probably the dumbest thing in baseball right now for the Dodgers to be doing. Risking long-term health for their unicorn. For what?
It's all ego. It's an ego play because this is literally like we've heard discussions now. Oh, should Pete Crow Armstrong win the MVP because he's playing elite center field defense? He's had a good offensive year for the Cubs, and Ohtani's stats are down by comparison to pitch since July 3rd. So they're gonna say, "Oh shit, we gotta get him back on the mound because you gotta give him a chance to win that MVP." Like, guys, a third title is more important than Shohei Ohtani getting a third straight MVP.
Who am I? Listen, I think there's like, I'll go back to the Derrick Rose MVP in the NBA.
Yeah,
eye test, value relative to team, what they are that year, and it's not even the Chicago comparison. But Pete Crow Armstrong is the best player on one of the best teams in the NL, and on top of it, has proven value in the field, being the best defensive fielder in baseball. Maybe you could argue it just really
he might win the Platinum Glove this year for the National League,
and has been a fantastic bat. Has pretty much been a 5-tool player. Shohei, on the other hand, is pitching really well when he was pitching, and still a really good hitter. Technically, he's still the most valuable player, right?
Yeah, technically,
but
yes.
Year by year basis case and possible voter fatigue, it's PCA. Very similar to Derrick Rose. I think LeBron James deserved that MVP on how we vote and do things all the time.
Yeah. Pete Crow Armstrong, by the way, 7.3 wins above replacement in August. You'll get potentially a 9-win season if he finishes hot.
And I don't even argue against PCA MVP. I think that works well. Also, maybe slightly as a Mets fan, I just don't want to see that because the Mets still have yet to have an MVP in their entire history, which is whatever. Try not to do that. Another thing, by the way, too, which we didn't actually mention, and I think this is really important. Dodgers, possible sale. Not possible sale, but the leaving of
the rumor
one of their owners. He's under investigation by the current DOJ.
Yes.
And in Shohei Ohtani's contract, Mike, and you know this, if he or Andrew Friedman were to leave, Shohei has an opt-out in that deal.
He claims he's not going to, but we'll see.
But why is that there in the first? I think it's more about Andrew Friedman.
I believe it's all about Friedman. I think he wants because the way Shohei said it is like, I want to make sure they're committed to winning because like obviously after what went through with Artie out in LA, he wanted to make sure like I bet on these guys and I want to see the infrastructure staying put. I feel like that's
interesting choice of words there, Mike. But
yeah. So I think that's one thing here. But like in terms of the MVP conversation, I know John Hain was whining about how elite center fielders are overrated in WAR, and like I think you combine Shohei's hitting and pitching WAR, it's less than Pete Crow Armstrong's because it's like
wait, just real quick. Was that the one where someone called John Heyman a cuck? And then he said if I knew what that meant, I would be upset. Because I think that was under the WAR for the center fielder reply, because that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on Twitter.
Yeah, because you look at just from a WAR perspective, like Pete Crow Armstrong as a pure offensive center fielder and like as more valuable than Shohei pitching and hitting this year, just on the WAR perspective, because I think he's a full run better. That's why Heyman was whining about the WAR saying, oh, like center fielders are overvalued compared to pitchers, which I think is nonsense. Center field is outside of pitching, by the most important position on the field. And I think you need to respect guys who are potential platinum glove winners who are giving you 30 and 100. I think that should be an MVP candidate right there. Like, and Shohei has not been outstanding offensively to the point where like he has to win it over PCA, which I think is why I think they're trying to get him back on the mound to try to say, hey, look, guys, remember he can pitch.
It's insane to me. And yes, to round out what I was going to say, Chicago Cubs are my pennant pick. I see a weakened Dodgers team. I see a weakened NL overall. I think the NL is wide open. I think all Major League Baseball postseason wide open. The Dodgers going 3. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I say, can we mention really quickly here? There is a chance the Dodgers have to play the wild card series because right now they're behind the Braves in record, and the Brewers have the season tiebreaker on them. So like, there's a possibility the Dodgers are in a best of 3 wild card series here, which we've seen anything can happen in those.
Well, they did play it against the Reds.
The Reds are definitely a much inferior opponent, whoever they draw this year.
Oh, absolutely. But we've seen that with the Dodgers. And as we know, even with the best of teams, 3-game series, anything goes in Major League Baseball, anything goes down. And that's why I think it's one of the greatest implementations in league history of adding those 3-game series, because it's some of the most electric baseball. Every single pitch matters, just like it does in a divisional series and a championship and World Series. But the change in drastic and insanity of just losing one game. Dodgers lose one, then the pressure mounts significantly.
Right
yeah,
now
for me, the Cubs are such a complete team, and especially after the deadline, that I can absolutely see them being that huge threat to win the World Series and the NL pennant. The defense is outstanding, pitching's good enough, and I like the hitting. It's the hitting isn't otherworldly, but they got studs in there. They could just do that. The Cubs are arguably the most well-rounded team in baseball.
Yeah, they got 7 with the Brewers next couple of weeks. I think that will tell me a lot about, like, because that's probably who they would get to in the first round if they get through the wild card series. So, like, I think if you can show me, like, okay, like, we go out there, we hold our own, we win 4-7 against the Brewers, I'd say, okay, maybe I'm more in that. I'd lean Milwaukee right now, given the vulnerability the Dodgers have.
You're a big Milwaukee guy. So, if you were to have a pick for your top World Series or your World Series matchup as of today on August 17th, who would you have, Mike Phillips? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Milwaukee and Tampa.
And that would be the best for the Players Association, I think.
Yes, they would love that one. They would be all over that.
If we get an amazing 7-game series for a first-time World Series winner between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Milwaukee Brewers, that would be the greatest thing that could happen for the Players Association.
Yes, they would love that so much. And then the MLB is probably rooting for Dodgers, Yankees. Say, look, guys, they're spending so much money.
Which they both could potentially lose in a 3-game series.
Yes, they could.
We'll see. I'm not making a World Series pick because every pick I make this year, and I know I just said the Cubs, every pick I make this year is a fucking disaster. So I'm just going to stay away from everything. Mike and Phillips 331 are your social media handles.
Yep.
Let the guys know. You were just telling me you were making a content calendar and planning things out for Sky Guys. What other stuff do you have coming up? NFL season upon us, obviously. Breece Hall went down today with a groin issue, so we'll see what's going on with the Jets. But yeah, let us know.
Yeah, obviously, mentioned social media, NFL 331. Over the Just on the Suffering podcast this week, I had Bill Benner of the Sporting News come on and get ready for college football season. Martin, you're a big college football guy.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, if you want to get caught up on what's going on this season, Bill's got some good storylines for you there. Check out here. Sky Guys, so go to the next Star Wars project bracket. We have another region up on the board this week, the Electronic Arts region. It's got a couple of video game project ideas in there, a couple of shows, so we'll put that out there as well. In terms of the writing, fan-sided, Mets on SI, so make sure you check all that stuff out.
Yes. College football, just never been a thing over here. I think it's more difficult in Westchester. I can't speak for you. I don't know what college team I would even gravitate towards, even if I had a choice. We also went to Iona. They used to have a football team, but now they don't. Like, there was never really anything for me to get into college football. I used to loosely follow LSU. USC was obviously the school when I was a kid. But yeah, so never really.
I also work on Saturdays a lot more. Cause like now, like as a grown up, because of like one of my many jobs here. So like it's hard for me to like get into the college football because like I can't watch some of the big games like on Saturday afternoon because like I'm working in the middle of the day and I'll like get home. Maybe I'll catch the night game.
Yeah, that used to happen to me too. But then I was working a lot of college football shows in the past as well, which got me like loosely interested and just never really was something that gravitated towards me. It's I feel like college football is a lot more geographical than it is like gravitating towards teams because obviously players are changing all the time. Duke basketball was very unique to me because of somebody knowing an athletic trainer on the staff, and they signed a whole team poster with Chris Duhon and JJ Redick and so on. So that was a lot easier for me to get into that on a personal level, but no, not really. And the Jets, listen, Garrett Wilson is my guy. And I think he's incredible. And the Jets have talent on offense. We'll see when Bay comes back. I don't know. I think Aaron Glenn is dead man walking. That's just my opinion. But other than that, the New York Mets are going to be playing spoiler, and I will maintain this. And if you're interested in Italian soccer, the season kicks off this weekend in Serie A. I am obviously hosting that Milan podcast on my other YouTube channel where this show gets uploaded. Martino Puccio is definitely one that you guys should all check out and subscribe to, like, comment. Mike and I do this on a weekly basis, get our clips up and discuss everything across Major League Baseball, 3 topics on the Yankees, 3 topics on the Mets, and then 3 encompassing the entire league. And again, Seria's back, huge signings in the transfer market for AC Milan. I really have to get to it right after the show, and many other things. So it's been a lot of fun, Mike. Not many shows left for this. I'm sure we'll go through in the postseason and then get ready for the offseason there. But yes, at Martino Puccio over there. Be sure to follow Mike everywhere on his social media channel. Go and follow That Milan podcast everywhere else as well. Any other final comments, Mike, before we finish up here?
I think in terms of, what's going on here with the baseball situation, I think obviously we're going to have some fun down the stretch here. I feel like the Mets obviously not playing for anything, but I think they're, at least for us, they've been more entertaining to watch. Whereas, it's not a complete chore to watch the games as it was in May and June. Like, I think you and I both admit, we're having more fun watching the Met games now than we did for a few weeks ago.
Absolutely, which is what I always really wanted to see anyways. It's just house money sort of play. It's really crazy because they've played well. Like we mentioned, 9-3 since the trade deadline. They haven't really moved at all in the standings. They're still hovering around 10.5, 11 out.
I think it's funny. If you put them in the American League, they'd probably be 6 out right now instead of 15 as they are in the National League.
I don't even. They probably are in that wild card 3 spot if they play the American League, because they could play a bunch of bozo teams all the time. But I digress. They play in the toughest division in baseball, arguably. So
I think AL East is probably tougher
this year. You think though?
Yes, because I think all your World Series guys in the American League are out of that division.
Yeah, whereas I do find the Braves and Phillies overrated. That's fair. I think the Phillies. Sorry,
I don't think the Marlins or Nationals are 2 level of Baltimore, Toronto either.
I think the Marlins are better than Baltimore. I think Toronto had a rough year. I would still take Toronto, but I think the Marlins are better. And then, Washington, I mean, they have no pitching and the worst bullpen once again. I will say this, by the way, Philadelphia Phillies. This is it for this core. This is it. And they cannot move forward with this. This is a nightmare. If they slowly start to capitulate, which I think is very, very, very likely. They're going to have to trade one of those starting pitchers. Aaron Nola, I don't know how they get away from that contract. Lots going to be going down in the city of brotherly love. So we thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next.